Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you and welcome for the Growing Our Economy Advisory Committee meeting of September 17th, 2025. Appreciate everybody coming. Oh, Michael, perfect timing. Absolutely perfect time. We did receive regrets from Ron Lampman and Kelly Ward, who unfortunately could not attend today's meeting, but we do have quorum and will attend accordingly. So call to order and a moment of reflection. So just give us a few seconds, just contemplate today's business. Thank you very much. Moving forward, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest from anyone around the table? And seeing nothing, you can go ahead.
The only thing that I want to just point out about PSAC is I do share a border with TCE. I'm a mile from the base.
Okay.
My garage is a mile from the base, more like a kilometer. But they did buy a piece of property that abuts mine.
Okay.
I have no idea whether I feel like I have the same interest as everybody else. On the other hand, I want to disclose that.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Seems that we all border on the TCE project. So I think, yeah, if that was going to do that, but if anything comes up directly to that, I'll kind of leave that to Shirley represents PSAC and Sean's here as well. So if anything that comes up that would kind of cross that line, you can do that later.
We both gave a beekeeper permission to put hives on our property.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So public participation, members of the public are encouraged to provide the committee with their comments and questions. Presentations must be prearranged with legislative services before the agenda is released. Members of the public who wish to make a deputation about a specific agenda item at the meeting must register in advance with legislative services by contacting the clerk at meaford.ca or 519-538-1060, extension 1110. Presentations are limited to 10 minutes and deputations are limited to 5 minutes. And Sue, I don't believe we have any presentations or deputations on today's agenda. Thank you very much. So I'll move on to point 5, approval of the minutes. Everybody has received the minutes in their agenda packages. And the recommendation is that the minutes of the July 16th, 2025 meeting of the Growing Our Economy Advisory Committee be approved as presented. I will look for a mover and a seconder. Reed, thank you. And Evelyn, thank you. Any comments, questions? And seeing nothing, all in favor of approving? Thank you very much. Approved. So moving into item 6, items for information. We have the pleasure today of having a presentation by Carol Greenwood of the TIAO. So I'm going to ask her just to step forward and give her the screen.
Sue, oh, you have it there. Okay, great. So good afternoon, everyone. As I was just introduced, I'm Carol Greenwood. I am with the Tourism Industry Association of Ontario, and I'm pleased to present highlights from our Ontario Strategic Tourism Playbook. That is a strategy that we launched just a month ago, and it is for starting in 2025, going right through to 2029. Please know that a copy of this comprehensive playbook is available for you, but it is quite comprehensive. So I'm just going to give highlights, but that playbook is accessible for all of you to have and to see. And we're more than happy to answer any questions at any time should you have. One of the reasons why we developed the playbook this year, and I just want to give you just a brief highlight of how it came about. We started this process back in October of last year, and we did extensive surveys and focus groups and insight communities and one-on-ones with several players within the tourism industry. We haven't had a tourism strategy in the province of Ontario, thank you very much, Sue, in the province of Ontario in over 10 years. It typically has been done by the province. They're the ones that have done it. But due to varying reasons, whether it's change in the minister or a change in just for whatever reasons, it hasn't been done. And so we approached the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Gaming and said, we would like to do it. We will orchestrate it. We'll align and communicate with you the entire time so that you're aware of the process. Are you okay with us doing it? And they said yes. So we went through that process. They were familiar with it, and they were actually present when we did the presentation on the launch of it. And so with that being said, I just want to sort of give you, the fact that this is the thing that the industry has told us that they need to move forward, to be able to continue to grow. So let me make sure I'm doing this right. No, I'm not. Oh, there we go. So I just want to, as I said, this is where should I put? Is it here? There we go. Okay, so you're going to see that I skip over because this is the full presentation, but I'm going to get you to where we're going. So I just wanted to let you know what do we consider tourism? Who makes up our economy? And so we are made up of the regional tourism organizations. There's 13 in Ontario. We're made up of the destination marketing organizations. There's 444 of those in Ontario. We know that most of the economic development officers now in municipalities have tourism under their portfolio. Not all, but a good majority have that. We also have the tourism operators themselves, the tourism suppliers. We also have the sector associations. And what I mean by that is Resorts of Ontario, Golfing in Ontario, anything that's pan-provincial. And so they all participated in this. So that they make up the mix. The other thing that we work very closely with the national organizations. So Destination Canada, TIAC, Hotel Association of Canada. And the reason why is because when something happens in Ontario with the size and scope of our organization, or our province rather, it impacts the rest of Canada. And so there's most of the public doesn't realize what's a municipal regulation, what's a federal regulation, what's a provincial. They just know that they need something fixed. And so we work very closely with the national organizations and with municipalities to make sure that those messages are heard and we're advocating on their behalf. So that just gives you, there's a shot in this presentation that shows you the infrastructure and how we all work together. I'm sure you will see that. It keeps skipping. Sorry, my apologies.
I know that thing's touchy.
Yeah, I'll try to let it. There we go. So I just want to let you know that visitor spending in 2025 is projected to be at 30.1 billion. That's with a B, with a target of 38.1 billion by 2030. Our GDP contribution is expected to grow from 29.7 billion to 39.3. Tax revenues then could increase from 11 billion to 13.7 billion. And tourism jobs are projected to rise from 296,000 to 313,000. We know that 1 in 10 jobs are in the tourism industry. So this is very important. And rural regions and art sectors, which I know are very important to you here in this community, are key to achieving these targets. So when we look at the strategic targets and we look at the goals overall, one of the things that was interesting that came out when we did all these studies is that it didn't matter whether you were in Northern Ontario, whether you were in Southwestern Ontario, whether you were in rural or urban, 6 things, there was hundreds of suggestions of things to move forward, but there were 6 key pillars that kept coming forward, saying that these were the important things that needed to make them be allowed to be able to move forward in their business. And so these 6 pillars are listed here. And the 6 pillars are, attracting visitors and spending, to strengthen Ontario's global tourism presence, facilitate provincial, regional, and sectoral market development, planning, and collaboration, to expand transportation infrastructure, to improve access and mobility, to strengthen Ontario's tourism economy and advance sustainability. And so within each of these, there is very detailed actions and next steps, one of them being a mobility strategy for northern and remote access. And we know that with the current investment attraction that you have within the energy sector, some of those factors that you're looking at, transportation, infrastructure, attainable housing, are very similar to what we're working on. So it's good for us to work together on those. Strengthening workforce resilience. I just talked to you about how that the need, 1 in 10 employees are from the tourism industry. This is really critical to build a stable and skilled and future-ready tourism workforce by addressing structural barriers, improving job quality, and shifting perceptions. Workforce is critical, especially in the rural and the arts sectors. Those strategies include hands-on training programs, short-term skills development, a storytelling campaign to attract youth, newcomers, and careers. A lot of people don't necessarily realize that the job they have that they love is in tourism. So many people don't really, we have architects, we have landscapers, we have ski lift operators. They're in our tourism industry. They're doing something they love, but they don't necessarily recognize it as tourism. And tools to expand the co-op and internship opportunities. This will build a skilled and future-ready tourism workforce. Pillar 4 was facilitate product development and capacity investment. Expand a 4-season tourism capacity across Ontario, as well as among Indigenous tourism operators through investment, attraction, capacity building, and innovation. I know that that's something that's important here in Meaford. I know you have specific groups around that. I also know you have the Meaford Hall. You also, you work with films. All of this is directly in line. It's like, I feel like a lot of your community participated in the strategy and sharing that feedback, because these are key things that came out. Your downtown activations. I can't tell you, I started to count, but I lost count of the scarecrows. I just want to put it out there. So, but also the investment tools for gateways, hubs, and emerging rural markets. Indigenous Tourism Ontario is supported to lead authentic Indigenous-led experiences, and they're working with communities with us. Resources are allocated for investment, capacity building, and marketing, and this support economic reconciliation and promotes cultural preservation, especially in rural and remote areas. And then the other one that was interesting to us, and we were very pleased to see it because we're a big advocate around advocating sustainable tourism in Ontario, and that is the advancement of practical sustainability. And that was beyond just the environment and the climate change that we're all dealing with. It's also about inclusiveness. It's also about ensuring that culture and heritage is preserved so that we're leaving things better than how we came. And so that was really important. But what was very clear is they said, make it simple. Make it easy. We need tangible, easy steps to move forward. And so that was heard loud and clear. And the final one was fostering collaboration and leadership. So building a high-functioning coordinated tourism system through clarified roles, inclusive government, shared accountability, regions working together so that we can grow a stronger destination to attract for development. And that was really important, why we needed to outline. I shared with you at the beginning what makes up our infrastructure. A lot of people that work in our industry don't realize that there's regional tourism organizations that support the region or destinations specifically, and how to engage with them. And so we wanted to make it very clear so that you know how we interact together, and we're not duplicating effort, but we're amplifying and complementing each other. So the arts and cultural integration is a huge demand driver. I want to let you know we work also very closely with arts community in Ontario. And they have actually just come out with their own strategy as well. It's very complementary to ours. And we work very closely with them. And that is something that I know is important to this community, and ways that we can interact and connect you more with artists that are in the area that help to develop your destination. So the sectors that are essential to allow us to get to that visitor spending, those jobs, we need the feedback from you continually to allow us to continue to grow. We would encourage you, if you're interested in any one of these pillars, we have representation from around Ontario that are engaged with us, giving us feedback, that are implementing it, or are just want to be part of making the positive change for the future. We would welcome you to be part of that. We would ask you to reach out to us. I'm open to any questions if you may have them.
Great. Thank you very much, Carol. That's great information. Really appreciate it. So I will throw that open to the committee for any questions or comments. Evelyn. Mike.
Having been around here quite a few years now, I've you know, we have Beautiful Joe Park. And I'm just bringing this up as an example for you to maybe identify how would relationships, or how could we use those kind of relationships? So we have this park, and on the books for quite a few years has been the building of a bridge to improve accessibility, because of the current access is truly inaccessible.
Right.
And so we can't, we've had people request, can the buses stop there? Well, they can't stop there because of the lack of accessibility. So this whole bridge and accessing the property on the other side, being able to park and all that. So money has been raised. There's been huge commitment in this community to fundraise for this bridge. And work has been done over the years to try and create all sorts of good memorials that relate to Beautiful Joe and Margaret Marshall Saunders. How would this relationship and better connectedness assist us, for example, in moving this project forward? We've got a very clear vision of what we think we need to improve, that we can become a stop on a bus tour here.
Yeah.
That we have something to add more to it, because we've had lots of requests, and even moms with prams, and you know, it's more than just even that. How could we use the system that you now, you know, say is in place to support initiatives of municipalities to move forward, to improve their prospects for encouraging tourism to come to the community?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And that's a really perfect, great example, because it links how tourism and the community work together. You want to have tours that are able to stop there. You want it to be accessible, and it's going to help to encourage people to visit your downtown area, spend money in your restaurants, and attend your festivals. So that works very closely. And one of the things that we know, and that is that just because we're tourism doesn't mean that all the decisions that impact our industry fall under the Ministry of Tourism, Culture, and Gaming portfolio. Many of the decisions fall in, actually, we work with 22 other ministries with decisions. So we're in this communication with all of them as well. And one of the main initiatives around the transportation and infrastructure is what we call the last kilometer, or last 5 kilometers, or last 50 if you're in Northern Ontario. And so it's like there's a lot of places that can get you somewhere, but then it doesn't take you to that next stop. And so we're actually working with the Ministry of Transportation. We're actually working with the Ministry of Infrastructure. We're working with organizations like the Ontario Motor Coach Association, like Via Rail, like Flixbus. And there's some examples of things that have been done. I know it's not as close to here, but in Vaughan, where the municipality of Vaughan actually stepped up, and they said, that's great that you drop somebody off at this place, but they're in the middle of nowhere. And if it's not somebody that's from here, they have no idea what to do next. And so the municipality of Vaughan has created these basically like welcome stations where people get dropped off and have some access. And, they've done it with a pilot to test, but we're using those examples, showing other municipalities that have need, and bringing those direct examples forward.
So how would the municipality, the staff of the municipality, what would be the formal process for them to look at and explore what options there are to help complete this last piece of the puzzle, to help move it along?
Yeah, so thank you for that. And part of that is, letting us know the problem and the situation so that we can go and gather the information from you, let you know what else we need in order to help to drive decisions forward. Now, sometimes they happen quickly, sometimes they take a long time. I'll be very transparent about that. But the thing is, having more than one, having more than just your municipality or one person speaking about it, having other people that are directly talking to them on a regular basis and that has support of this strategy can only help to make it move forward. So I would encourage, if I could, perhaps meet with you afterwards to get some more information, I'd welcome that.
Thank you, Evelyn. And I will say on that point that is on council's and staff's radar.
Great.
Because this has been discussed at the council level, and there is a great desire to have that completed. The really good news is that yesterday, day after 5, I was talking to a couple of people who said they've actually reached their destination. They've hit their goal. They had a large personal donation at the last event they had, and now they've reached their goal. So the ball is a bit in our court to a degree, and it is definitely being looked at and figuring out next steps.
If I just may, I think one of the really positive things about your example is so often part of the resistance that we hear from government, and it's valid, is that they say that it's sort of they're looking for the hand, like, you know, can you pay for this handout? And the fact that there's been so much work already done here where you've taken the ownership and the accountability and responsibility for it, and it's just about taking that next step to make it happen, I think is very positive in this, because it's showing that credibility and integrity towards actually making it happen. You're not relying on them to do it. You've done the work, and let's get it to the next step.
Right.
Just to finish it
Follow
off, for me, it's not just an issue of just accessing dollars, which
Oh, yes.
is one piece, but for us, you know, I don't think we have a lot of good experience on working with tour organizations and even getting people to now say, oh, after, you know, 30 years here, we finally, you know, you can
Mhm.
access our park, but that's a big step. So I think we can use these other resources, I think, or connections to help us, because once you have it, you know, people won't automatically come. And unless we
Right.
pick up the skills and the connections about other major tours and how we get the people here, and how they work.
Thank you. Shirley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the honest truth is we haven't made an investment in tourism here in Meaford, and we need to do that, and we've talked about it, but we have not made that commitment in the way that we need to. So I just think there's nothing but opportunity ahead of us. And so you certainly have us thinking today, Carol, and thank you for your presentation. I had a couple of questions, but I'll ask you this one first. In terms of visitor information services,
Mhm.
we did a few years ago do a bit of a survey and found that the communities around us pretty well all had in-person services offered.
Mhm.
And even though we think everybody today is, you know, using this for everything, I think people still like, you know, when they come into a new community to talk to somebody. And I just wondered if that was your general experience. Do people really still want to come in and find a place where they can go and get actual information? And just further to that, we've had a lot of discussion about social media and how people are backing away from social media and moving back to print, and whether it's radio or TV or other resources for gathering information. So I just wondered if you could share a little bit of your experience in terms of, you know, the best way nowadays, you know, to capture people.
Yeah, and part of this, I will, you know, very self-admittedly say I will come back to you after I talk to our colleagues at Destination Ontario, who are the ones that handle the Ontario Travel Information Centers. They did move to what they call now OTIS, which was Ontario Travel Information Services, which meant it went digital. There are several communities within Ontario, specifically, I would say, you know, about this area and north and southwest, that have decided to go back to having a visitor information center because they have found it beneficial to them. I think it's a little bit of a pendulum swing in the sense that I don't think digital is going away, but it's a complement of both. And so, but I will talk to them and find out about the trends that they are seeing right now, because that is something that they measure, and I will share that back with you so that you have it in, so you can make the decision for this community here.
You have a second question, Shirley?
Sure, if I may. I'm curious to know, you know, looking at your strategy and recognizing all that's happening south of us and the commitment from a lot of Canadians not to travel to the US. And I'm wondering the impact of that on Tayo as you know, move forward with your strategy and how you look at where people are going. If they're not going to the US, where are they going? Are they spending more time locally or in Ontario or in Canada? And just how does that impact the TIO strategy?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's actually one that we've been sort of working on even prior to what's been happening in the States. The reality is, even before what was happening, 85% of our visitors that come to Ontario are domestic. And when I say domestic, I mean provincially domestic. They're from Ontario. And then we have, and actually it was closer to 80. It was maybe more like 81, but then 10% were from the States. Then 10% were the combination of the other provinces and international. The difference is the amount that the 10% of the American and the amount of the 10% of the international, they stay longer and their spend was significantly higher. So it's still important. One of the things within our strategies, we talk about needing more allocation of dollars from the provincial government to Destination Ontario. Destination Ontario is pretty much funded the same as Prince Edward County. Not county, that's ours. Prince Edward Island, excuse me. And so, which is, that's fine, but it's not fine when Alberta and BC and Quebec get significantly more. And we have two of the international airports that are the gateway for people into our country. So we need to have more marketing dollars. They are putting money into international. They are putting money into the States to bring them. You might have heard our boss, Andrew Siegert, who loves Meaford, as you probably may or may not know. He's a resident. But Andrew's been very clear about saying, yes, we might be elbows up, but we're arms wide open. And so we want your business here. And part of that is because we can't, especially with inflation and that, we can't expect Ontario to continue to pay more and more and cover that difference. So it's really important for us to be in the other provinces and to be in the States and to be internationally to pull that business in. And just recently, I know that Minister Cho and Destination Toronto, Ottawa Tourism, and several others, they just finished completing a trip over into Japan, China, and South Korea.
Thanks, and thanks for that presentation. I had a numbers question that I was sure Ron would ask, but since he's not here, I'll do it. And it also follows up with a bunch of things that we've been talking about. It's interesting that in your strategic targets, each of the numbers are pretty significant, with the exception of direct tourism jobs. So you've got everything else, right, going up by 30%, GDP up by 30%, tax contribution up by 30%, direct tourism jobs going up by about 5%. And I was going to ask, where on your website I could find, the work that gets you to those numbers. But I think what you said was that most of the job impact is going to be outside the direct tourism industry, right? And maybe that's the reason why the target is so low. It also leads me to say it's probably the pitch to anybody who doesn't see investing in tourism as particularly valuable. It's a very narrow thing, when in fact, I think, if I'm right about these numbers, what it really means is that it's an investment in the entire economy of the community.
It is. It is. People don't realize the impact of tourism overall. I mean, it's larger than forestry and mining combined and agriculture combined, of which that's sort of what we pride ourselves on in Canada. And tourism is quite large in that perspective. Part of the issue with tourism is that, we've had a situation, as you well know, within our colleges and universities where a lot of the post-secondary programs have disappeared. And so really the shift has been going to, that education process of either, younger, in the, from grade 6 onwards, of really looking at and educating what those jobs in tourism are. The number is small, but it's small. It's not small when you look at the overall. The percentage is small, but it's not small when you look at the overall number. And we need those people employed in order to get us over that edge, to get to that revenue.
Where are they? Where are the, like, geographically, where are the tourism jobs? Are there lots up here out of
Absolutely.
that whatever it is,
Absolutely.
17,000 you're looking for?
Absolutely. I mean, some people say, is this related to the jobs that'll be created by FIFA coming next year? And it's not. I mean, this is across the board. There's differences in Northern Ontario. There's a lot of jobs in, resorts, in fishing communities, hunting and angling. And we're seasonal, but there's a lot of areas that are 4 seasons. So where you might not have any job availability, all jobs are filled, especially in this region, being Region 7. You guys have a very, very low unemployment rate in the summer when it comes to tourism jobs. That changes pretty dramatically as soon as the snow starts falling. And then you have a lot of jobs up, and in there's these shifts and it changes throughout the year. And so it's those intricacies of knowing sort of those markets and how it works and how to target to get those people here for you. And that's where we talk about the attainable and affordable housing, because not everybody can house also temporary or seasonal workers, which is why we need to have more accessibility for them to get off with the tour bus. So it's all linked. It's all linked.
Reed?
Thank you, Carol, for your presentation. And I'm kind of coming back to how big tourism is.
Mhm.
And I think that Shirley mentioned that we really haven't embraced it because maybe we don't understand it like we should. And I know in the past, the province sponsored a trade focused education program around tourism. It was called We Treat You Royally. And they would go into communities and they would have information sessions on what it meant if you had a sign that said cash only or exchange rate on par with US or something like that. And it really talked about how we should be treating visitors and people that not necessarily out of country, but out of the municipality or
Mhm.
outside, what they need to know about Meaford and what it has to offer. And it also educated people that are, maintaining the trails in the wintertime, what that meant for hikers and snowmobilers and whatnot. So I wondered if there was a trade-focused education program that municipalities could embrace or chambers could embrace and put a number of their businesses through that.
There used to be, you're right. There isn't right now. I will tell you that actually has come up in conversations that I've been part of in the last 2 weeks for doing something very similar to that, to provide that support. And it's, the intent is that a collaborative approach will be done to the Ministry of Labor, Immigration and Skills Development to be able to allow us as our industry to develop that. Now, whether that gets put through there, but we're also speaking to a lot of the education side that if we're able to do it in that way, we're looking at it in different angles, but to exactly that point. So you might be a good person to have on that committee.
Okay, I'm just gonna, if you don't indulge me, I'm gonna dovetail, and your presentation was actually quite perfect timing because the deputy mayor and I had both at our last council meetings just gave a couple of updates on kind of what we had attended at AMO and some of the things that were discussed there. And ironically, they did a concurrent session on arts and culture and in local economic development, which is the first time that had happened at AMO. And it was incredibly popular. It was something they felt was long overdue
Mhm.
and was well attended and very, very insightful. So at the risk of kind of shadowing some of what you said, to your point, Michael, the hidden economy, it doesn't necessarily have a large industrial or commercial brick and mortar element, but Ontario's cultural economy represents 254,000 jobs, which is more than the real estate, auto manufacturing, and forestry and mining industries combined, as you said, and generates approximately 27 billion annually and is 49% of Canada's cultural economy. So it's huge. Government of Ontario, to your point, Reed, they 21-22, they did the Celebrate Ontario Blockbuster and Reconnect funding, and they estimated 1 billion in economic impact where every dollar they generated drove an extra $21 in visitor spending. So that's massive. I mean, in terms of impact. Arts and culture tourists spend more. 13% of unique tourist trips in Ontario included arts and culture activities, yet those trips accounted for 30% of tourist spending in the province. And why I find that this is really relevant to us is Meaford and our community and even our whole county is very arts and culture driven. We're definitely agricultural, but we have a very strong arts and culture bent. Arts and culture tourists stay longer. So 40% of Canadian and those visitors made trips of 3 days or more, while only 13% of non-AC arts and culture visitors did the same. So that enforces the importance of the short-term accommodation industry, which is something we're going to be discussing at our next council meeting as well. So all these things have impacts beyond just that, literally that what we see as tourism employment. It's everything that's within the economy, as you said, that is directly impacted. Trent Hills was one of the presenters, and they talked about they've really embraced tourism, A and C tourism. They champion collaborating with local bodies like the Chamber, BIA, and they set up a community organization database. Coincidentally, they even set up recently, like we did, a community engagement coordinator, which makes local event and tourism planning simpler. So they did exactly what we did, as to have that one point of contact, to Shirley's point again, to try and make sure that it's easy for people coming into the community to have something that they can kind of get to. So the main takeaways from that were really active initiatives such as business attraction, retention, or shovel readiness. They are definitely important. They're on our radar, but they don't have to be mutually exclusive of tourism. They're definitely hand in hand. It's not measured just in ROI, it's a social impact, because it's a well-rounded community that embraces arts and culture, that provides a better lifestyle, and that attracts businesses, families, and health professionals, which is even more important for kind of servicing all sectors. And then we need to work with Grey County, who does a good job of local tourism, and make sure that we budget properly for active and tourism in the upcoming budget. And the only concern I have about Grey County is that they do a fabulous job. I don't want to rely completely on them, because they're servicing 9 entities and we don't want to be lost in that shuffle. We've got to make sure that our voice is prominent and heard in that. And that means that we have to kind of do the bootstraps and do our own thing. So yeah, it's the whole tourism sector, as Shirley pointed out, I think has been a little lax in the past from our perspective. It's something that's always kind of taken care of itself, but I think we need to step up to the plate and kind of embrace it as well, and make sure it fosters and grows.
Well, that's all but very positive to hear. And to your point, I mean, that's one of the reasons why, and it lends a little bit to what you spoke about earlier, the difference between digital and in-person. Destination Canada, in all of their reports that they were, looking at where the visitors were and what they were coming from and what was important to them, experiences is number one, right? And so when you have an experience, you're not necessarily on your phone, you're engaged, you're talking to people at experience. And so, that links hand in hand. Culinary was very important, and so I'm happy to share with you, I can give it to you digitally. This is the Arts Across Ontario, which they no doubt referenced in that presentation that they did at AMO, that we're working very closely with them on, because we're so intertwined. And I think the thing about that is, to your point about Grey County, yes, there's also RTO 7 that represents this area. There's also us. We're really very much trying to amplify efforts, not duplicate efforts, but to really bring the focus where it needs and to provide that support that you require. So we're happy to be involved at any point to help you get to that next step.
Well, we really appreciate you making the presentation, taking the time, and
course.
lending your expertise. So hopefully we will lean on you in the future. Sorry,
Nope.
Sean Everett, CAO, will just also offer an opinion here.
Yes, and thank you very much for the presentation. And just one of the things I just want to mention, through COVID, there was a lot of work that was done based on tourism on the South Georgian Bay region, lowercase r, for region, where all the municipalities came together within the South Georgian Bay region and strategized about how could tourism be managed during the pandemic, because this region was one of those regions that those in the city saw as being open for business because of the natural amenities. The work that was done, and I chaired that committee, the work that was done is still very relevant because it talked about the infrastructure to draw tourism from the basis of not each individual municipality, but as the South Georgian Bay region. When people come here, they don't see the border of the municipality, and they definitely don't see the border of the two counties, being Grey County and Simcoe. There's a lot of opportunity. And I know it's one of the pillars that was identified as collaboration. 35 years ago, probably the biggest tourism association benefit that this area had was the Georgian Triangle Tourist Association. That was that fit the niche of the Georgian Triangle tourist area, but that's something that's floundered for years. And I can tell you that at an economic development coordinator level, where I previously was employed, there's a lot of interest at that economic development coordinator level to see what tourism in a merged manner could actually impact, especially when you're bringing two counties together. Grey County and Simcoe County were extremely interested in what that could look like because, as more municipalities consider municipal accommodation tax, you know, to run that municipal accommodation tax, you need to be involved with a DMO. And right now, there's a little bit of confusion with the destination marketing organization. So I think, from a Meaford perspective, pushing the envelope with the South Georgian Bay region members and what does tourism look like from that merge and shared effort, I think is a really powerful opportunity, especially when you have the resort pretty much right in the middle of it. So when you talk about bringing bus tours, what was always explained to me was for the resort and any accommodator, it's all about heads and beds. And you have to try to get people here for a 3 to 4 day stay. Each one of our municipalities, being Wasaga Beach, Clearview, Collingwood, Town of Blue Mountains, Grey Highlands, and Meaford, not one of those municipalities have enough for 4 days. But we share the Georgian Trail. We share a range of rail trails. We have unbelievable natural amenities. Last night was a perfect example. The Canadian Amazing Race, the finale was in this location. So by bringing those partners together, that is where I think you're going to get the best bang for your buck, because I don't know anymore whether or not a lone municipality can afford to do what's needed for tourism on their own. But if you join it, you could be pretty powerful. So just with that, I just wanted to bring that forward. Thank you.
Great perspective. Thanks, Sean. It's interesting. Just one question comes out. I'm just curious. Why wasn't that a triumvirate? It's interesting that Bruce County wasn't involved in that conversation as well, because theoretically Simcoe and Grey are kind of the gateway to Bruce, which is also hugely popular for its own recreational and four-season kind of activities.
Through Mr. Chair, it's a really good point because RTO7 is Grey, Simcoe, and Bruce, right? What we found was the South Georgian Bay region was the region within RTO7 that was dramatically getting impacted by COVID. Natural trails were getting overwhelmed. Things were just becoming unmanageable. So that's why, and to be honest with you, those councils within South Georgian Bay region, they've done some good collaboration. They have the South Georgian Bay Mayors and CAOs forum. And I would have to say that was really the stem of, okay, we need to pull staff from those municipalities. One of the biggest successes I've seen with RTO7 is they have a very strong wayfinding signage program. The problem is not all counties have adopted it. So Simcoe County has, Bruce County has, Gray County hasn't. So when you go into Bruce County, if you're up on Gray Road 40 and you go onto Bruce Road 40, you can very clearly identify, yeah, I'm in Bruce County now because these signs are awesome. Getting that collaborative effort between RTO 7, and they did fantastic work, but trying to get something as simple as a wayfinding strategy consistent amongst the three counties is pretty tough. And then you factor in our MTO has not adopted the signage standards, so you can't put the signs on MTO unless they're in the connecting link. It's fun stuff. But I think from the South Georgian Bay region, that's where the focus was, and we didn't want to leave Bruce County on its own, but quite frankly, those municipalities within the South Georgian Bay region sort of left everybody behind because it was we got to come up with something. So hopefully that's a helpful response.
Yeah, no, that's great. Rising waters lift all boats. So hopefully, yeah, I mean, if everybody pulls together, then the regionality works for all of us. That's the, you know, the end result. Okay, well, Carol, thank you for taking your time to make the presentation. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. And I will let you know, I know it wasn't part of the topic today, but we are working very closely at trying to have better guidelines specifically for short-term rentals when it comes to the municipal accommodation tax. And I know that's a big part here.
Mhm.
Happy to come and talk to you another time about that.
Oh, see you next week. No.
All right. Okay, great. As long as the weather is just as good, it'll be great. Thanks so
Thank you,
much.
Carol.
Is it okay that I go? Is it appropriate I go?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. So moving on under point items for information, point B, the open fields tour discussion. So I'm going to turn that over to Jessica. Just give us a little bit of an update on where we are with that.
Sorry. So we've got the brochure. It's going to be getting delivered this week from Town of Blue Mountains. We've got lots of volunteers from this committee, so I thank you very much for all of that. So it's September 27th, and there's 6 farms participating, and 2 are in the municipality of Meaford. There's various vendors, activities, live music. It's a free family event from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. So we're looking forward to it. And I know staff's really excited about it. So I'm just extending the invitation to everyone to come and check it out.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments for Jessica? Okay, seeing nothing. Thank you for your work on this. I think it's going to be great. I know the Blue Mountains one was very successful last year, and I see no reason why that wouldn't continue this year. And hopefully now that Meaford's in the fold, we'll get a little bit more recognition of our ag contributions out there. So that's phenomenal. Moving on to point C, which is the PSAC TCE update. I'm just gonna, Shirley, if you don't mind, just giving us a bit of an update on that.
I'd be happy to, Mr. Chair. Thank you. The last meeting of PSAC was September the 11th, last week. The agenda consisted of a review of the work plan that was presented to us, and that takes in the remainder of the term. The goals are threefold. First, to develop a clean plan of action. Secondly, to identify and discuss and explore community interests and concerns relating to the establishment of a pump storage project and to make recommendations to council regarding the same. And thirdly, to develop a plan with the development and approval of clear and measurable KPIs that will be recommended by the committee and supported by council. And that way we can regularly review the activities and the effectiveness of the initiatives of PSAC. There was a section, and I should mention that if you go to the agenda for PSAC, you'll see the whole report. But within it, roles and responsibilities of a number of organizations are also included, and that would be of TC Energy, DND, the Impact Assessment Agency, the Ministry of Energy, ISO, SON, municipality of Meaford, and a core staff group that has been formed to work within the office on this project. So that's all laid out in the work plan. The 5 pillars of the plan are research, community engagement, communication and transparency, an advisory role to council, and performance management. Okay, so that was the first part of the discussion at PSAC, and I know it's a lot of information without actually seeing the report, so I would encourage everyone, if you have a chance, to pull up that agenda and see the whole report there. But with what I've shared, if there are any questions, I'll try to answer those. And additionally, we had a second report which outlined a social and economic conditions assessment that we're preparing to undertake. Funding has been requested from TC Energy for this project. And this project would complement the federal report that came out, I forget how many years ago now, maybe 3 years ago now, that looked at impacts for the entire area, but had very little information on any positives or negatives that could come to Meaford. So we want this project to be really Meaford specific. The IA requires consideration of health, social and economic effects, both positive and adverse. The project will focus on impacts, as I say, that are really specific to Meaford. It will evaluate under health, air, water quality, noise, traffic, etc. Under the social economic side of things, jobs and housing and things like that. The demographics will look at growth and diversity within the community. Quality of life will be investigated. That's recreation, culture, etc. And infrastructure will be important, roads, water, wastewater, facilities. So we have a complete understanding of what the impacts will be on all of these really important issues as we move forward. So anyway, I'll ask Sean to follow up, but we feel this project is really important to Meaford. And as I say, the funding has been requested, and Sean will give me a nod if that's approved at this point. And yes, not approved yet, but anyway, we will make everyone aware when it is so that we can confirm that this project is going forward.
Thank you, Sean. Do you want anything you want to add to?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the rationale for staff making the request to TC Energy to complete the social economic readiness plan was, with the benefit of talking to staff from the municipality of Kincardine, they went through a similar process back in the 70s for Bruce Power. My question to them was, if you had to do it over again, which Ms. Bruce C, what would you do? And one of the points that was raised was, whether you call it a social economic readiness or a community readiness plan, that's something that, quite frankly, and I've said this in open session, should have been done about 5 years ago, because we're sort of behind where we need to be to determine, what our strengths are, what are our weaknesses, what are our opportunities. Because when you take a look at a project of the proposed pump storage, the reality is during the potential construction, there's a lot of employees. Once the construction is over and it becomes operational, there's like 30 people. What an opportunity, though, to be able to have attainable housing, facilities, because the one that I always use as the example, when I was involved in the attainable housing portfolio in the Blue Mountains, we did a lot of research about, and we heard a lot about, Whistler, has the answer. Just do what Whistler did for attainable housing because it works. The reality is, when you do the research, Whistler had the benefit of all their attainable, or a lot of their attainable housing was the athletes' village from the Olympics. So they had an infusion of federal dollars to build all this, athlete village, and then the Olympics was gone. There's your attainable housing, right? Not saying that TC Energy could be like the Olympics for us, but we could actually position ourselves well to get attainable housing that would be perfect for them, that they drive. And then when their workers go, whether or not it gets handed over or some arrangement that, whether the town or the county could then use as attainable housing. It's an opportunity, and I do know that, we've brought the county into discussions to say, like, we want to make sure that they're at the table. But the community readiness, we want to expedite it, and we realize that there'll be a price to pay to get it done quickly. But we do need, because that's just on the attainable housing side. We're talking like wanting to make sure that county, municipality, and MTO, when we look at capital budgets, we want to make sure that we're not replacing or reconstructing roads that will actually be the route for heavy traffic to serve that. That way we can, make sure that maybe the roads get reconstructed after they get beat up. So all of that being put into perspective, I think is a good step. And the last thing I would say is the relationship that has been developed over the last 3 to 4 months with TC Energy, it's a very strong relationship. I'm happy to say that, we're meeting, we're getting good headway. And the last thing I'll just mention is next Monday, and the report is made public now. I do have a report next Monday at Committee of the Whole for Council to consider the next steps on whether it's a community benefit agreement or a community benefit bylaw. That is a critical point for us to start really negotiating what the community benefit aspect of TC Energy is, and understanding there's more players. ISO will be a big part of that as well. But looking forward to getting the direction from council to move that forward. I know council wants to see that process completed by the spring of 2026. Staff is fully committed, and I do know TC Energy is fully on board to hit those timeframes as well. So, thank you.
Great, thank you. Shirley.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And I just wanted to add for committee that tomorrow is our next PSAC meeting, and we will have Strategy Corp present, and they will be delivering a presentation outlining the concepts and purposes of community benefit agreements. So it will be a great opportunity if anybody has the ability to sit in on that to really understand what an agreement's all about. And we'll see examples from other communities, and we'll start the conversation about what those early stages may look like for us. So that's tomorrow at 5 o'clock right here in Chambers.
Thank you. So takeaway is we should be looking to Meaford to host the Olympics so we can get affordable housing in the future. Any questions for Evelyn?
I just have one further question on the community benefits. Is there, because I'm sure depending on who you talk to in the community, despite the question of should we have it at all and shouldn't we have, there's the question of what are the benefits. I mean, the example you gave was accommodation. There are others here that are talking about a major wellness center, type thing with a pool and other things. Where and how is that envisioned to figure out what the community feels are their priorities?
So, through Mr. Chair, there's a really, from a community benefit agreement perspective, there's a couple ways you can look at it. One, you can look at it from whether or not the municipality would be best served in negotiating an annual payment that is based on, a annual escalation clause. Or you can do, identify some facilities to say, we want X, Y, and Z. Personally, in talking to some other municipalities that have went through something similar, the annual payment is a good route to go. Because your annual payment could actually fund those facilities that you determine you need at any point in time. Because the other piece too is the municipality does have development charges, which are monies that we get from new development that can only be used for items that are driven by growth. So as a municipality, we really need to look at what is the best strategy for the long the long term. So one thing, again, learned from Kincardine was that it is extremely important to have an escalation clause. So because when you figure if you did the deal in the 70s and your payment doesn't have an escalation clause, it may not look as good now as it did before. So I think working with council and getting the direction, Strategy Corp is well versed in the best ways of moving. But again, that social economic development or social economic readiness plan will also help us understand the facilities that we need. Because one area that, is very interesting is from a healthcare perspective. There's some municipalities very close to us that have a really good model. And the one I've mentioned before is Ennisville, has a fantastic model for medical clinic where it doesn't have to be all paid by, one source. You take a look at like private partnerships. So this will, I think, really give us the opportunity to take a look at from a long-term strategy. What's the best route to go for that agreement?
And I would think that the one thing, the only word you didn't use in there is I think the cash settlement scenario provides the opportunity for long-term debt. It increases our load carrying. So in that term, that gives us the time to be able to do, to your point, I'm sure you're steering this all into a visioning project for the public to be involved. So that enables, if you're getting the funds, then you can have the visioning project to then determine how you want to allocate those funds to determine what brick and mortar you're going to kind of get out of that. But it increases our debt level possibilities. So it should be, a good way to go. Sorry, anything else, or are there any questions? You go ahead.
No, I just have to apologize. I have to leave at 3:00. So.
Okay, sure. I'm glad we got you because that was, I think, most of the stuff we wanted you for has been covered off. I appreciate it. Are there any questions for Sean before we carry on? Evelyn?
One of the questions and concerns I have, I didn't see it on the agenda today, was the business retention and expansion study and what's happening with that. And I guess my sense is it was one of the things that I thought, of the priorities of this committee. It's kind of moved down the priority list. We're now at the end of the year and I don't see it moving forward and our big local businesses being involved and, being interviewed and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just curious what the long-term agenda is and if we're going to really focus on economic development initiatives, because I feel, there's been advice provided by this committee and yet those things that we think are critical to beginning to move forward to developing a good economic development strategy for our municipality so that we can, partake of Great County efforts and every other efforts. But if you don't know where you're coming from, you don't know how to get involved with those most effectively on our behalf of our community. So that's my question.
To you, Mr. Chair, great question. And I can tell you that I am knee deep in budget meetings right now for 2026. When we deal with economic development, I believe it is a priority project. And also making sure that we have a budget that can do that work. And this is something that I've been working with staff, a bit of a change in the way projects have been done. What I'm proposing is these types of projects cannot be done off the side of staff's desk. So you'll see a higher price tag on some of these projects, but with a project manager who is looking at completing the project on task, within scope, and on budget is the answer that's what they're going to focus on. We should be able to get the plans done quicker. We should be able to have a much better community engagement and stakeholder engagement plan that we stick to. And it just, it ends up being our economic development plan as opposed to a cookie cutter. It should be done by a third-party consultant, but it needs to be done with that project manager who's a staff person that is keeping things moving. I've seen too many projects and too many plans, and when you read them, you're looking to find the name of that town that they did before because it's cookie cutter. So just changing the philosophy that no more side of the desk, because the side of the desk projects don't get done. So that's the 2026 budget. I've said to staff, I'm not looking to add projects, but this one has been sort of like it's been out there. Now it just needs to get actioned.
But it sounds like a one-off in regards to economic development. I mean, I think there's been enough material and ideas precipitated in terms of some of that. And I guess I don't get a sense. Your answer sounds like a project. This is just another project. And rather than that there's any plan to put together a more comprehensive economic development approach, rather than I understand the need for nothing being put, but when there was a position identified to support small businesses, and then that position isn't even focused on small businesses, it's hard for us to understand how, and I understand with the change in leadership and change in direction for staff and their priorities. But as a committee member focused on economic development, I'm just trying to, sort out when does economic development become a priority? So that we actually put together a full game plan, of which this was one piece that would start it.
So, and not to be political, we'll determine whether or not we want to invest in economic development through the budget process, because the plan is just one aspect of it. I will say, when I talk about a plan, it is, what is the pathway? What does it look like? But more importantly, the estimation of what the costs are in the future. Lots of plans don't put dollar signs, so it's unfair for council and the public to weigh in and commit to something if they don't know what the investment is. Because there's nothing worse than getting a plan and then the following year the budget comes out and council looks at it and says, we had no idea it was going to cost $500,000, right? That has to be laid out, because it also has to be, what are the resources that we do need? And very, very clearly, what is our role? Like, what are we trying to achieve? Because you're right now, I would say, our economic development definitely needs to be more about, even on the planning side, industrial lands, commercial lands, right? Like, what are we doing with that inventory? How are we drawing industry? What industry do we want? What commercial do we want? So all of that has to be really set in stone, because I think, when you say, what's the character of Meaford? I don't know if we can say what that character is. So, yeah.
We're going in circles. Go ahead, Reese.
Well,
I know you've got to run.
yeah, no, I know we've been talking about it for a long time, to have a community vision on what Meaford wants to be. And we need some public input to that. So we've been beating that drum for a while.
Yeah.
And
Actually, the one thing that wasn't mentioned in that whole conversation was, because it's interesting, you picked out the business retention. We've got on here, we're talking about the business directory, we're talking about industrial. The one thing that's kind of missing from the conversation, and this is something we actually haven't spoken about, but technically our strategic, our overall plan ends in 25, like it's done. And we need a new one. So we've got to get that kind of on the table, because that's the all-encompassing guidebook for everything. So we need a strategic plan, and that's going to have to be fit into the mix as well. And that should then look at all the things that fall underneath that. So that's something we will definitely talk with Sean about regarding kind of timing on when are we going to update the strategic plan? Because that's paramount. Anything else? Okay, moving on to point D, and I'll go back to Jessica for a business directory update. It seems to be germane to the conversation.
Thank you. So the directory is open. It's on the website. We encourage all the businesses to add their business. We did a little bit of digging on the website to get some numbers. So overall, since January 1st to September 8th, we've had about 5,000 views on the business directory, which is pretty good considering. And overall interactions on the page, we have about over 12,000. So it's looking good. I've had a really interesting feedback from agriculture because it's divided in sectors and industry. So people are engaging and they're giving their feedback and what they would like to see. So it's been really great. I do plan on really engaging the directory at the community input session regarding the BIA. So I'm hoping that I'm going to be giving out handouts to register their business. So it's going well, and the feedback's been really positive in regards to it. So
Thank you, Jessica. Any questions? Evelyn?
How many businesses have you got on that list now?
I believe there is 52.
So what efforts are we doing other than
So
to kind of encourage businesses to participate and do that?
right now, it's mainly through social media that we're kind of like advertising, marketing the directory. That's the main focus that comms is taken with it.
Is there any reason why there couldn't be personal phone calls to each of the businesses or something like that, that invites people to, for many people aren't aware of it, and B, it just strikes me as just social media, I do not think is enough. I think more of an effort to contact and to have some direct communication saying, look, this is a plus, it's a opportunity for you to, another marketing, thing to add to your marketing, and just for staff to do the contacts and just make the calls to all the businesses that we know about. I just think more of a proactive approach rather than a reactive approach would be better.
Through your chair, I believe like the directory's always been there on the website, right? So we're just kind of suggesting to kind of look at it and encourage them to update their listing and to add a new one. All the new businesses that come, when I'm speaking with them and we do the opening, and it's one of the first things I say, I think, even if maybe it's something that I address at a chamber after 5 or, there could be more that we do as far as communications, like maybe we put something in the paper or, I don't know about me physically calling them.
To me, unless there is a proactive approach, I'm not sure how it'll be any more successful down the road when there's only 52, but anyway, so it was just, I just think here's a great tool. You've made an effort to really make it work a little more effectively. I'm just wondering if there are other approaches that can be taken and considered, so.
During our agenda setting meeting, we had these conversations as well, and it was a good conversation because I wondered literally ethically whether or not we know the businesses are out there. Can we not just populate this thing and then tell people to update it as need be? I think from a high level, I think there's a couple of things that are going to come into play here. One is going back to the previous conversation about the economic development strategic plan. This again falls under that auspice. And again, I think we really need that fulsome plan that would kind of point out the necessity of that and how to best to do that. Moreover, we have a conversation on Monday that is going to be about the website, and we are really going to be redoing the website. So this is something as well that has been a long-standing pain point for not just Meaford, a lot of municipalities. Municipal websites are not necessarily the greatest vehicles, platforms. So Holly Maroney, our communications person, is going to be kind of spearheading this to try and not, it has to be migrated because it's becoming end of life with the provider we're on now. So this is actually is a good thing, because it's providing us an opportunity to actually kind of look at our website and now not just move it, but redevelop it properly. So in that conversation is going to be, what does economic development look like in that? Because what she has done are looked at studies about who are most of the visitors. And interestingly, the main visitors, the largest number of visitors have been things like Meaford Hall, the library, recreational. So a lot of it is ECDEV driven as well. So when you realize the importance of that, when you're realizing the structure of how you're going to do it moving forward, that needs to be considered in what the new website's going to look like. So all this is chicken and egg. We've started this at a grassroots level now to get it going, but I think it's going to be a larger picture under the strategic plan and the new website of how that's going to look and how we're going to
So,
fill it out.
Mr. Chairman, then it sounds to me that we're kind of waiting for an improved web approach, website,
Yes and no.
yes
So-
and no. And then, is this one of those things where you partner with other groups that are in the community, like BIA
Yes.
and the chamber,
Yes,
for them to work with their members to encourage them to also be listed on there?
absolutely.
I was just hoping for some kind of more proactive way to kind of support that whole process. That was it.
I agree. Shirley, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And to Evelyn's point, I think we come back to what our CAO just shared with us, that, Jessica's one person with a whole lot on her plate. And so to establish the priorities, and if it's felt that, that this is a priority, then, Jessica would need to be directed to spend more of her time doing, as you suggested, reaching out to the businesses. But I agree, putting some onus on the chamber and potentially the BIA to support. I mean, just last night we had the after 5. If I thought of it, I should have said, we've got this business directory and, we're trying to get it updated, and when everybody, 50 or 60 businesses in the room, would everybody please go home and take 2 seconds and do that. So I will at the next after 5 for sure. But I think, yeah, we need to encourage other organizations in the community to assist with this, because it could be half of Jessica's time following up with the businesses. Is the information correct? Perusing the directory to make sure that those businesses are still there. I just pulled it up here 5 seconds ago and I saw misspelling, and I saw businesses that, aren't here anymore. And so it is a big job to keep that current. And I think we have to decide, who's going to do that, or how much of Jessica's time is appropriately dedicated to this in comparison to her other roles and responsibilities.
So from what I'm hearing, it sounds that because we don't have a clear strategic directions established for ECDEV at this point, that we're kind of in a holding pattern until that happens. Is that, I'm just.
I think that's fair. 2 or 3 things have to happen. So things that I think what Sean made a really good point when he talked about, for example, something like the CBA and that something should have happened 5 years ago. This all should have happened years ago. So what's happened is now this body has kind of sort of come forth and said, why isn't this happening? And now it's trickling in. But three things are coming to fruition right now. And one is that new website. One is we're doing a reorganization. The third was literally getting the CAO on board that really has more of an interest in this directionality. So putting all those things together, as you know, the Titanic doesn't turn on a dime. So that's not going to happen like that. And until we get the org chart going, which then restructure staff to figure out then who's on point on that, then we can apply the necessary staffing to it. But more importantly, what is the budgetary contribution to that as well? Because that's part of it. So this is a perfect storm of hopefully things coming together. And unfortunately, it is going to take a little bit of time till we get to the budget, till we get to the reorg, until we get to those in the website, the next steps of how those are going to come together to facilitate exactly what we want to accomplish. But I feel like it is moving in that direction. It's just not happening at light speed like we'd like. Sure.
Sorry, just to continue the discussion, Mr. Chair, and to me, I always come back to, I think we, each of us in this room probably have a different definition in our heads of what is economic development and what is our version of it and what is our vision of it and what do we want to see the priorities being. I think to some degree, TC Energy is giving us no choice. I mean, that in itself is economic development in a huge way, $7-8 billion, whatever it turns out to be, if the project happens. And, you know, with what they will need to support that project in terms of everything we've talked about today, from housing to healthcare to businesses to industrial lands, you know, more commerce in Meaford, more people living in Meaford, all the rest of it, that is economic development. So it's happening in spite of us if this project goes forward. So I will say, Sean's not here, but I think we are so fortunate to have Sean Everett as our CAO because he's strategic and he's visionary and he gets it. And I think everyone sees that from the comments that he made to us here today. So I think we give him a little bit of time, give the budget some time, and just, allow us to work together as, as things unfold with the project and with everything else that's going on in the community. I mean, Nisa Cornforth is here with us today, and the events that have been happening in Meaford since you've come on board, Nisa, I mean, through the 150th and this year, I mean, just fantastic. And with all Jess is doing with businesses, I mean, if our mayor was here, Ross would be saying, geez, I'm getting called to cut a ribbon every week. There's so many new businesses in Meaford. So economic development is happening. I think, sometimes we just, we may not be aware that, you walk down the street and you go, where did that business come from? And what's going in this building that's being renovated? I mean, it's happening all around us, and it's exciting and it's wonderful. And it's just, how do we as a committee who are sitting here grappling with, what's our role in all of this? And, if we're going to invest in a new strategy, we haven't seen the budget yet, maybe there's money in there for that, or maybe we'll talk about that. But, just to prepare for, what we want that to look like, because we talked for decades about, Meaford being on the edge. It's coming. We're going to take off. It's going to happen. And now it is. It's happening all around us. And just, are we prepared for it?
I think you're probably, what I just heard you say is we probably need to share more of the successes of what we are doing. For me, it doesn't matter if it's the business registry or it's a retention, because it's not as you said, it's more what the priorities are that we eventually do. And so I think though it's kind of, because there is a sense that nothing's happening, and yet what you're saying is there is stuff happening, and I think we need to tell our story better. So maybe sharing more of that. I know there are posts in Facebook, when there's openings, but maybe one of the things we could be sharing is once every 3 months or, whatever, saying, hey, these are some things that have happened, in our community, that business, or, there's all sorts of examples of economic development newsletters And, I received 2 or 3 from different municipalities, and really all they're sharing is like the kind of thing you just mentioned. This store opened, this thing happened. And so people get a feeling economic development is really happening. I think there's that sense it isn't.
Sure.
Because of all these other things. We couldn't get to some of those other things because of everything else of the major changes that we've gone through. But I think it would be good to start telling our story from what we do have.
What's a little frustrating about that, I think, is, and I think since we brought Holly Maroney on, I think her communication has improved. To your point about, you see the communications about that position being open. It's interesting. It's amazing how often communications we get about things that are happening in the community. We have a newsletter that comes out as well that talks about things that are happening in the community. The problem is more, you're right, dissemination of information, as we know, whether it's on personally, group affiliation, associations, or from a municipal level, it's really difficult to disseminate that information effectively, because you're right, we put it on social media, X amount get it. We literally have newsletters that are put out to people, X amount of people get it. So the strategies, you're right, need to be amplified in terms of how we reach people. At the end of the day, it's still difficult if people aren't embracing or signing up for, or, if everybody in the municipality would sign up for the newsletter, we would gladly, be disseminating all the information we could. But that is a very small uptake. So you're right. I think our communications officer already does a lot better job than has happened in the past. But to your point, it's not reaching everybody, and we still have to strive to get that messaging as far as we can.
Thank you. And all good points. I think we're probably doing a lot, but just not communicating as best we can. I'd like to circle back to the list if I could. Having worked on multiple lists, I'd say one of my suggestions would be that a core group needs to be the owner of that list, not just one organization. So it can't be just the municipal list. It has to be like a team that comes together. How are they going to use it? Who's going to own it? How's it get updated? And so I'm thinking like there should be like a little beehive of coordinators. It can be the chamber, the BIA, perhaps the hall, STA group, everyone who feeds into this, and they need to know the fields that it can be sorted and separated by. So it can't just be alpha, because you might want to talk to people in tourism, and is there going to be associations on it, or is it all business? So a number of questions that need to there needs to be a bit of a think tank on how, where is it now? And now would be a good time to start, because if there's only 50 on it, it's almost a blank sheet in a way. I 50 sounds like a lot, but you could start and say, how is it going to be used? Who's going to use it? How's it get updated on it? How's it stay evergreen? Because business moves, faster than you can imagine. And so that would be my suggestion, that we get a bit of a core group to kind of be the quasi owners of it.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just as Rita's making that suggestion, I wonder in the socioeconomic study if it isn't something that could be incorporated within that, because it does speak to, both to facilities and jobs and so on, so it's kind of on the fringe but connected. And I think, it's having that directory will be important to TC Energy, because they will be focused on spending locally for everything they possibly can, as they are right now with the barge project, and the economic impact of that alone in our community for motels, for restaurants, for hardware stores, and so on over the 4 months of that study is estimated to be $150,000, which is a big financial impact for those particular businesses. So because of that, I'm thinking there may be a way to work it into this study so that however, and we don't know what that's going to look like, but it's going to be a consultant or whatever that is, maybe that person can kind of get it rolling, and then that would make it a bit easier for the chamber and the BIA and Jessica and whomever to kind of keep it current. It's a question I will ask.
Okay, well, this kind of dovetails into the next point because it is kind of right on point. So, Jessica, I'll turn it over to you to discuss point E, which is the BIA reinstatement community input session upcoming.
Thank you, and through your chair. So we've got the community input session. We have a slide that's the handout for that, but so it's Wednesday, September 24th. Meaford Hall at the Galleries. It's a drop-in format, so it starts at 7:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. Staff will be there in and out throughout the day to kind of answer questions. I'll be there all day. And we're really hoping to engage with the community and business owners, property owners. We have been doing a survey. It's online right now. Right now, we've had about 47% of the intakes of the survey have been residents, which I thought was really interesting. And 30% of the people who have taken the survey are neutral and undecided about reinstating the BIA, which I also thought was interesting as well. The number one kind of priority so far in the survey has been beautification, which I also thought was interesting, which is flowers and the main kind of downtown core. So the survey is really interesting. I'm fascinated by the comments and the engagement that it's bringing. So yeah, I obviously invite all of you to come to the session. I think it's going to be really great. Council is also invited to come as well. And again, I'm just encouraging property owners and building or business owners to take that survey because their input really matters. And to do the survey, it's at meaford.ca/BIA. So you also can take the survey too. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Any questions? Okay. Seeing nothing. Thank you, Jessica. Hopefully we get a good turnout at that. Also on here was point F, the Rural Ontario Development Grant. I think that was just kind of a follow-up just to see whether or not, because it was mentioned previously, whether we have been involved with that or where's our progress on that?
Yeah, so the application is completed. Took a while to do for the grant, but so the director, it's being reviewed right now with by Amy, the Director of Development. We'll be applying for that grant. The due date September 24th, and that's for the BRNE. So we'll let you know how that goes.
Okay. Moving on to committee inquiries. Are there any inquiries for any of the members? Seeing nothing, now move on to communications. The committee will consider correspondence received by members of the public during each meeting. To share your comments, thoughts, or concerns with members of the committee, the public can send an email to clerk@meaford.ca. When emails are received to this email address, they will be compiled into a correspondence list, which is then distributed to committee members prior to the meeting. Cover sheet of this list will be included on each meeting agenda. The contents of the correspondence list are not included on the public agenda to protect the privacy and personal information of those residents who choose to send in their thoughts and comments. The date of the next meeting is Wednesday, November 19th, 2025. And if there is nothing else, last chance. If not, then I call the meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.